Thank you. And we're live. Welcome to the Warrant Committee, everyone. Madam Clerk, would you please take our attendance?
Yes, we have Dave Humphreys, Tom Caldwell, Lori Connolly, Julie Joyce, Christine Cosio is on Zoom, Tim Lyons, Julia Maxwell is on Zoom, JJ O'Connor is on Zoom, and Judy Steele will be with us shortly.
Thank you. Our first agenda item, Mr. Larry Lawfer, if you please join us. This can be for a presentation, discussion, potential vote on the proposed article with regards to the historic district in Milton Village. Mr. Lawfer, take it away, please.
I am Larry Lawfer. I am the chairman of the Local Historic District Study Committee. I live at 96 Cliff Road here in Milton since 1994. This is my third visit here. Thank you for bringing me back. What we're here to do is to correct some of the language in the bylaw. Let me bring everybody up to speed. This committee has been studying the need for a local historic district for the town. This is different than national historic districts and state historic districts. It comes with some regulation, but not much, and it comes with some benefit to the town. In our 3-year-long study of this, we decided after looking at everything in the town that the best place to start would be Milton Village. And so in our proposal to the state, we proposed that, and that was accepted. Once that became accepted as a committee, we had to have public meetings and discussion with the various other committees in town, Warrant Commission, the Planning Commission, the Planning Development, Historical Commission, etc. In the process of that, we made some adjustments to our proposal. And we are back here in front of the committee to present that proposal with the understanding that this final proposal will have to be ultimately accepted by the select board, who identified our group, our committee, 3 years ago. I think that brings us up to date with what we're actually physically here to do. We do have a presentation, and the proposal are up on the website, and I'm available at any point. I'm easy to find. You can call me, you can email me.
Thank you. Judy.
So if you could outline the changes that you made from December to now.
Well, Judy, you were on the emails. You were actually in the meeting. And so the only changes that were made were to the bylaws. And they were the sections that you specifically called out. Who is going to be on the committee and how are they going to be chosen? And the way we did that is we followed what the town has been doing. And the only difference we made from when we met with the Warrant Committee to today is that the Warrant Committee had us including more people who were actually on town committees, and discussion within our committee, who also has a number of people that are on multiple committees. The thought was have someone who doesn't have multiple responsibilities to the town. And spread it out. So instead of having somebody from preservation, we put another member from, in this case, it'll be Milton Village. If 2 years, 3 years from now, we choose another area to have a second historic district, those people can be elected, and then we would have 2 people from that. Those were the only changes that were made.
It's my understanding. May I continue, because I really do have a list, and you're going to follow.
Just in a second, did you say that there was an actual presentation that you were going to give, Mr. Lawfer?
I do, and I sent it here.
Yep. So why don't we do this? Let's let him give his full presentation, and then we'll go to questions after the presentation.
I thought that was
In
it.
case maybe some of the questions that we might have might be answered by the presentation.
So
Slides?
Yeah, that was just the question I was going to ask. So I sent this to you. Did you send it down to them? Do they have it?
Yes, we can pull it up. We can share it.
Please. 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 And there's only 12 slides, but it lays out what we did, kind of nuts and bolts.
Oh, I saw that. That came to us.
So we are the Local Historic District Study Committee, and that is different than state historic districts and federal historic districts. We can go on to the next. Okay, so this is what this is talking about here is how we came about as a local historic district. Please don't kick that. I just had surgery here. We were chosen in 2021. The select board chose to open up a committee to study the feasibility of this. And there are something like 180 towns within the state. There's a slide later on this presentation that shows you. That is constantly changing. I know that Framingham became one, and we're going to become one, so those numbers will go up. The intent of the process is not to lock down, like these kinds of committees can get lost in trying to maintain some sense of what a town is outside what the lifestyle of a town is. Milton has been around for a very, very hundreds and hundreds of years, has a lot of history. We do not need everything to look exactly the same. We need to, as a town, continue to grow. What we were 200 years ago is not what we are now. It's not going to be what we are 100 years ago. So we approach that with the understanding that Milton does want to continue to grow. We just wanted to make sure that we maintain things about Milton that the town believed had significance. And that's not every old building. It's not. There's a criteria more than that. And a committee was set up to determine that, made up of town members. Next slide. Okay, so this slide is talking about the difference between a local historic district and a national register district. And those are pretty simple. Liberty Bell is a national historic district. You know, the Bunker Hill, the monument is a national historic district. Local historic districts come down and they study what a town decides, not what the state decides. The state has named a variety of, and the federal has named a variety. In Milton, we have 6 or 7 federally named historic districts. Milton Hill, the cemetery, Railroad District, that's in East Milton, that physically doesn't exist anymore, but the history of why that was important is historic. So it wasn't historic for us right now. We're not going to protect the railroad that brought the granite from Quincy, over to Deposit to build Boston. That's part of our history. We don't need to protect the cemetery. We do need, because there is growth going on in Milton Village right now, we do need to make sure that we maintain what the town believes is of importance historically. Not to control what materials are used or what paint is being used, but does it conform to Milton historical guidelines. Next slide. Purpose and benefits. There's a whole bunch of, the purpose is to protect what they say is the Milton lifestyle. Man, you try and define that. You'll find 10 people and we'll have 12 opinions about what that is. But we do understand, like Suffolk Resolves, how important that building was to the entire history of the United States. Right down here in Milton Village, what happened to the Industrial Revolution when they used these brick buildings down here to fire up the industries for the first time ever in the United States. These are vitally important things that we need to protect. We're talking about federal versus state. Now, the state, if you are living in town and you have this old home built in 1820, built in 1700, and you really like it, you can, as a private citizen, fill out a form, send it to the state, and you can be registered as an historic district. Traditionally, being an historic district or an historic town brings real estate value. So that's a benefit. Being in an historic district brings both the benefit of more value, equity growth in your property, but it also brings the responsibility of maintaining the sense of what the town is. Talking about Milton Village, we have many beautiful buildings that are right there that we'd like to protect. The owners, we've met in our committee with two of the owners. They care very much about protecting and building Milton. Their concern is regulations and how much another committee that they have to present to may slow down the development of the town. And we assured them that that was not the purpose, and that nothing that we do is going to curtail that purpose. That being said, that's not completely accurate, because within the proposal there is soft teeth that if you don't, if you present a project and there is some concern about the historic nature of it, that the committee can decide that you need to adjust or respond or something. If you don't, then there is going to be some kind of a fine. How that fine is going to be collected and what that fine is going to be is stated in the proposal, but not with any specificity. After this committee is completed its work, and if the town so designates that we have a local historic district, then there's going to be another committee of the local historic, but they are going to create and codify the laws that would be passed through the town. I don't know if I talked enough about the positive thing. I mean, people who have lived in this town, people who have grown up in this town, we all know that this town is maybe not the best, but constantly shows up as one of the best towns in the country because of the education, because of the schools. And I know there are better schools, but it's an amalgamation of all of that. And Milton is a special place. It's a big place. It's diverse, and that is part of its strength. Next slide. Oh, these are the towns. This is the map I was talking to you about. The green are the towns that us, and I can't see because of that Cronin. Is that the room? Can we?
Yeah.
Can we?
I can walk down the hall and see.
We can't get rid of that. I don't even know if it shows Milton yet, but it shouldn't.
It does. It's the yellow dot.
Oh, the yellow dot, that's us. Yeah, it's a little far away from me. Well, that yellow means that we are provisionally. We're just waiting for the town to determine. Studies, look toward, yeah, this is, we had a bit of difficulty, and we started in COVID time, and as you know, that was a tough time for everybody. We were supposed to have 5 members. We couldn't keep members because people would come on. This was a lot of work. And as we know, we all do it as volunteers. And people came on, saw the work, and left. Some people came on, thought it wasn't what they wanted to do. So we are now down to 5 members. who have been pretty much since the beginning and dedicated their time and effort. And so we started with 5, supposed to be 5. We went to 7. We're at 5 now. And researching parts. We researched everything. And if you look at our meeting notes, you will see we talked to every stakeholder that we could, including people from the state and people from other municipalities. So, because once this is done, people in this committee are going to be gone, and 100 years from now, people will be looking at this. Why did they do this? What were they thinking? What was the reasoning? We wanted to make sure people understood. The next. Oh, these are just pretty pictures of Milton Village itself. That's the one side. And then I think the next picture is the other side. Whoop, no. Yeah, Milton Village is really unique, and it was a surprise to me Milton Village wasn't named in state or federal because of its importance, certainly to the Industrial Revolution in particular. But it was one of the first places, of course, the Native Americans lived here before anybody else, and there was a negotiation between one of the local governors from Boston, from Boston and a landowner, wealthy landowner here in Milton, and that's how Milton Village got started. And then one of our governors, Wainwright, bought a whole bunch of land, and that's when it became a destination place for vacations. And then he was the first one to actually kind of sliced up, and that's Milton Hill. Very, very significant area in this town, but significant in the fact that he was the first development. And as he died and then left, that land was settled, and there's many, many beautiful homes there. But that was the direct line from the governor to downtown. And it wasn't the Adam Street as it was actually High Street, which is a little bit above that. That was the significant area. And that must have been because of horses or some reason, but...
So there wasn't Adam Street at all? Like, could you...
Yeah, Adam Street wasn't there all the way through at that time. So High Street, which is this tiny little street, you go down that street, and there's so many of these cool, really old, more bungalow-y type buildings, but they've been there forever. So we really did, and I want to stress this. In our committee, like in the next committee, there's an architect, there's an attorney, there's somebody from the historical commission, there's a real estate professional, and then there's town members. And then all the committees should have, and we've had this in the proposal, should be stated in the proposal that they're there, because these are professionals. An architect has to be a member of the AIA, Architect International. A real estate person has to be a member of the National Association of Realtors. So there's codes of ethics, and we bring that to the table for the betterment of the town. And we looked at it not from today, what we want today, but what we want for the town, not just today, but 50 years from now. How can we grow? And that's part of the problem with our most recent election. How can we grow and still maintain our town? How do we communicate that? Right. We're less evasive, far less evasive, our committee, and what we're trying to do. It's a protection and it's an opportunity. And the significance won't be known for years because, 200 years from now, sitting maybe in a better town hall at that point, who knows? Hey, there's nothing wrong with our town hall. I'm sorry.
Well, they won't be saving this up.
Send those letters to Dave Humphreys, care of the Warrant.
Well,
No. I lost my place. My son said,
great, thank you. So that's the formal brief. Any questions?
Seeing as you're looking right at me,
Is she,
I volunteer.
we'll go Judy, then Tim.
I just have a few. Can I make a statement as well as questions, or do you prefer
I mean,
statement later? Okay, on the surface, and it's admirable that we have selected this section of town to preserve some of its visual history. So that being said, I'm sort of a contract language specialist in a way, and so I look at language. It's the basis for everything going forward in any discussion. What does the language say, and how do we proceed? How do we negotiate on that language? How do we adhere to the language? How do we make it work the way the framers of that language intended it to be? Okay, that being said, Section 4 was a problem for me, as you well know, and I language-wise, and I did contact your committee. I went and I listened to your debates and your discussions, and then I, of course, branched out to as many people, all the ones that knew I was coming and didn't close the door, so they had to go through my big spiel. Anyway, what this is, your presentation, which is very good, no denying that. We've got the history down. If you've driven in that section of town, even once you understand the significance of those buildings. What you say about what you is in your vision for the commission that will oversee what goes on in that district for a visual impact means nothing in reality, because the language here is going to dictate how we pick those 7 people and only 4 alternates, which was a problem for me. I did go to the Historic Commission. I talked to 2 people there, talked about that. They seemed interested, very interested in changing 4.3, and clearly understood how that could not work into the 7 and 4.1. And what you say, what I say, what anyone here says, that we're not going to tell people not to put up blue shutters or red brick or, green grass. 7 members will dictate via their rules and regulations what happens in that district. They will be appointed by one board in our town. We don't know what their rules are. And each and every person that I have spoken with, and it's been too many, and I'm kind of glad this is coming to a head, so I'm not running around asking a million questions, has indicated to me that it is of concern, because I had an opportunity it was a random encounter with someone from another town that has many historic districts, mostly on their main street. And what happens in their district is never the same, because the people on that committee change. So you could have people appointed that are really red brick or nothing. You can have nothing but a red brick or a shake roof. And that town was big in their historic district. we have no control over what will happen to these 40 properties simply because
When you
we
s-
don't know, and you can't know, I can't know, Dave can't know.
When
None
you-
of us, the Historic Commission can't know. Nobody knows.
Okay, so Judy, was that the statement that gets us to a question?
Well, it does. So here's
Yeah,
the
I'm just
thing, and I
waiting to
know
answer. There was some,
I know you said that you changed it, but you didn't change 4.3. The only thing that changed, to my knowledge, and that's why I asked that question so I could zero in, was you changed out, and now you have an attorney as one of the 7, and that's the only change I see, except upping the number of in-district persons. And I'm going to roll to this. It's my understanding, and I know there was talk that there's one commission for however many districts are formed within a town, but I'm not sure, and it came to my attention today that in some towns, they form, in this case, 7-member committee for each district. Because if you have 5 districts and only 2 people from the district, then every district is not represented by in-district people. So the way they
Judy,
solve that
I'd
problem.
like to bring the rest of the committee
I'm-
into
I'm
this
still waiting for-
dialogue.
Well, can they not learn from what I'm saying
Well,
here?
there's so much.
I'm waiting for an answer
There's
to
so much
answer.
like going on all at once here. Let's
Yeah.
do this. So let's start. Larry, would you?
And only Larry can answer this.
Right, so let's,
You
you
can't.
have a response. Right.
yeah. So let me start right away. You said nobody can know. You were elected to this position, correct?
No, I was appointed.
Okay, so these people in this committee will also be appointed. They'll be appointed for a finite period of time. And so you're right that as the people change, so could the policies. You know, we didn't have cars, now we have cars. We didn't have cell phones, now we have cell phones. So things will change, and they should continue to change. So we wanted to make it flexible. So then another thing you talked about was how there's no specifics. There's many specifics in here, but we left it general because we did not want to dictate. By the way, visually, it's only from the street, from an historic, how you can see it from a public street. So if you're on a corner, you can see 2 sides of your house. You can do anything in the back that you want, as long as the town agrees about it. But we didn't want to dictate colors, and that is in fact in our proposal. Now, that doesn't mean, like Judy says, that it can't be changed. The next committee could do that for whatever reason, but I don't think we don't have an area except maybe Indian Village, is that Indian Village, Indian Springs, where it's kind of very, very similar everywhere.
Cliffs?
Indian Cliffs?
Yeah.
Judy, was there
So I
another?
hope I addressed,
No, and I understand that,
Yeah.
and I love that your particular committee wants to have, or as this phrase was coined by NASA when they sent the first man into space, a human, and do the most good with the least harm. That was coined by NASA. So I understand that our goal should be to preserve this history, doing the most good, that's the most good, but with the least harm to these 40 property owners, if we want to look at it that way, because it's easy to remember that phrase.
okay?
So my interest, I'm on board with historic preservation. I would have loved to have seen some portion of this old town hall incorporated into this new space that they needed, like the library.
Yeah.
Love the library project. Old, but moving forward. I'm all on board with that. And I'm encouraged that we can do that. My focus, and it goes to perhaps a past thing I did in life, is that I'm always aware that things start out great. And they do. They have a lofty goal. And it's admirable. But then you get in the weeds later. And it's all who is positioned on these committees. I mean, the person that appointed me had no idea what they were really going to get. So, well, here you have it. Or any of us, really. You know, they just, you know.
That's town governance, though, right?
It is town
Yeah.
government, and you know, you answer their questions honestly and to the best of your ability, and if they pick you, well, a year and a half later you wonder why you applied, maybe. But
Keep your head down later.
yeah, so, but I worry about, these are our neighbors.
Yeah.
We know that 3 residents of this town own between them 8 commercial properties in this district.
As well, I
As
know.
you know.
I've talked to
We
all
know
of them.
them, we've talked to them.
Yeah.
And I worry for them about their concerns. And I just wanted to perhaps, I guess the impact of my worry about this language went to them, not to those people specifically, but to the 40 that were imposing extra burden
Yeah.
of, I'll just call it
Regulation.
renovation, regulations
Yeah.
that the rest of us don't have to do.
Right.
All the rest of us in town.
Well,
And it's
you're talking
commercial, and
commercial.
we have so little commercial.
Right.
We're desperate for commercial,
Right.
it appears from my
Yeah.
listening to various
We have
things,
always.
development things here.
We have always, in Milton, historically been underserved with a commercial group because Milton didn't want it. Milton Village is a place where there are, and the people you're talking about, at least 2 of them, we know the 2 that were at the other committee, these are really, really smart developers, and they love this town, and they're not going anywhere. But just like you said, their concern is another layer of regulation, you know?
But that would be for
Judy, it's Tim's
residential as
turn.
well.
Yeah.
Tim, sorry,
It's okay.
did I take all your questions away?
Nope.
Thank you.
I just have a clarification question, well, 2. At section 5.1, bullet point 2, talks about commission has control over changing of colors.
Talk up just a little bit.
It says the commission has the power to basically say what colors you can use.
Which number was that, Tim?
Section 5.1, bullet point 2.
Okay.
And then in section 9.1.2, it says you won't do colors. It's contradictory. It's confusing.
Yeah, I would have to look at those specifically.
And then it also goes in that same part. It talks about storm windows and doors, screen windows and doors, and window air conditioners. There's nothing about windows. And windows are huge. When you talk about historic, because you can say it has to be an 18 over 1, an 8 over 8.
Here's the thing with that, specifically, because we spent a lot of time, we have an architect, a lawyer, a real estate person. Those 6 over 6 or 8 over 8 old ones, single pane, horribly inefficient. You cannot dictate to someone that they have to live in a horribly inefficient house. So we had to have a way for them to be able to upgrade those windows to a type.
That's my point, and there's nothing saying they can.
There is.
Where?
I don't know specifically.
I've read this 10 times, and there's nothing about window types at all.
So
It
that,
talks about
so
screens.
that, by the way, when something is left off like that, like there's no color specific, it mentions color, but it doesn't say anything specific. It means that the next group, to Judy's point, can determine what those specifics are during that time for that area, designated area. And it was specifically made that way. So it could be determined downstream.
When they codify it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
But that specific thing with the windows, because I lived in a house with bad windows.
I'm a contractor and I've seen it totally throw stuff
Yeah,
off.
Yeah.
Because they got the windows, doors,
yeah,
and some of the colors that just ground stuff to
Yeah.
a halt.
yeah, yeah.
I just don't want to see that
You don't see much
happen,
of that in this town.
hopefully.
You just don't. I mean, we're a pretty big town, so, you don't see many, there's a couple, but, and certainly not in Milton Village.
I just, well, first, I love the presentation, thank you, and I thought that was really interesting, and I didn't know that about High Street, so I love every time I get to learn something new. That was totally new to me. I had a couple of questions, and that might be the same that you just answered for Tim, but when we're talking about alteration, or to alter, when it says reconstruction, is that after a total loss, or is that, like, what exactly would reconstruction consist of? Removal of exactly of what? To me, it's sort of the details that I see that you're not thinking about, and then all of a sudden someone's got a $250,000 additional bill that they weren't preparing from because before they bought the house, it wasn't the plan, and that changes, and I know that can hit people, and especially some of our older folks are in some of the older houses. So that was a point that I wanted to make to that. And a couple of things, Tim, you touched on the windows.
Do we
that I
want
had
to
a
answer
question
that
about.
question before we move on to the next one? Was that a question?
No, it was just something that I kind of wanted to talk about, just the devil in the details
Yep.
point of that, and that if it's going to be codified, I'm assuming your answer to Tim sort of answered that question to me. Well, that we're not at that point yet, but I want to make sure that we are, like, before anything is signed on the dotted line, there's another step that's coming that will
Yeah.
have the opportunity to really state exactly what that means. Like,
I think what's going to happen, my understanding of this, is our committee creates this proposal, and the next committee, after this is voted on, creates those specifics.
so if this gets approved now, we're approving it with very broad language, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so.
Broad,
That wraps it up, huh?
Well, so, I mean, that's the point, is that right now, the article, when we get back to it, we'll pull up the article, is that we're creating two things right now. It's going to be the commission and the district.
yeah.
Okay.
So I'd be asked, we would give a recommendation to the town meeting to decide, commission, district, and then the actual, I don't want to use every word except for guidelines. The regs,
It will be rules.
the rules that will be created will come later.
And can I just ask
Sure.
you, is this map that you did, so this envelops the business district, but is this the Verizon building it stops at?
No, the Verizon building is up the street.
So this is,
You're on the
I'm blind.
Dorchester side.
yep, but I know, right here, like, where are we?
I have to like.
I don't have my glasses.
Yeah, okay. So your Verizon, that's Elliot going, so
Yep.
your Verizon building is here.
Yep, yeah,
That big,
yeah,
yeah,
yep,
correct.
okay. So that was my thing, so it stops directly at that, and then the residential homes afterwards. Do you see that, do you foresee that, this stretching up the hill into the residential?
Then you become Milton Hill,
Yeah,
and then that would be another district.
and that would be a different district, and that would
be
have a different set of,
Right.
whole different,
I
okay.
liked the idea of Milton Hill just because of the history of Milton Hill, but in talking to people in the town and the planning board and the zoning board and all of that, Milton Village was the best place for right now.
Okay. Fair.
Best place to start.
No, I agree. Thank you. That was it for me. Thank you.
Judy?
I think I'm encouraged that we've cleared the air about the next, we're giving them permission to create a committee whose job will be to make the rules for how these 40 properties maintain their properties. That's the unknown. We know they're going to pick 7 people. That's all we know. And I think that's my main point, is that we can all be very encouraged on the preservation portion of this article. But we also need to be aware that there is an unknown for 40 property owners that are our neighbors. And I just want everyone to, and it seems everybody's a quick learn.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry.
It didn't sound like you were done yet, Judy. Are you done?
No, let.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry, I thought you were
done.
No, let Julie go, because
Yep,
she's
Julie,
got
go
some
ahead.
great
Julie, go ahead.
input.
Just a quick one is when we were talking about things that are viewed by the roadways or the ways, that wouldn't also be viewed through the Neponset River or the highway or anything from the people in the back, like 88 Wharf. I don't know what that view is from Medway Street and from the Ventura Street Park. So that property would fit in the back of that from the Neponset Riverway, right? Would that fall into this? If anything could be seen
That's a
through-
really interesting question.
That was my-
For instance, one of the questions that we had is, well, there are drones out there now. Can't the historical district get up and drone and see what's going on behind? Not the way the law's
If it's
written.
if it's a mode of transportation or it's a accepted riverway, walkway, highway, any of those, right?
Public throughway
Yeah.
is the way it's described. So a public throughway is, the way it's commonly known is from the front yard,
Okay.
right outside in front. But your point, why not?
Well,
You
it would be
know?
the riverway, yeah. Okay.
So
Thank you. I'm
her
sorry, Judy.
point leads us to 2 Elliott.
Yeah.
Is this okay? That we
Which one?
discuss?
Is 2 Elliott the bank?
No, it's where the gym is.
Okay.
But if you continue to go over the bridge, over the Neponset, that building backs out to the dam.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, you have to stop and watch the
Yeah.
water, don't you?
Yeah,
You see
yeah.
turtles
Really
there
special place,
sometimes,
yeah.
You know? But, so now that begs as Julie just pointed out, it begs the question.
Right.
Will this commission consider that a view as well? So we're looking from Elliott,
Yeah. This,
but then we go down
yeah,
to the bridge, which is a major.
I know the answer to this.
Okay.
This committee will not.
Okay.
But the building department, the planning commission, the zoning commission will look at that.
So we're only
But
gonna
our
look from
committee will
Elliott.
not.
We're only going to look from
Yeah.
Elliott.
From the way that this committee is permitted to approach it, from the public throughway. I know.
I know, that's a conundrum, isn't it? So the public.
Welcome to
through-
governance.
Yeah, I know. So the public throughway
Would be
is going over
Elliott's-
the bridge as well,
Would be Elliott and Adams.
right?
So you're standing on that bridge and you can see one
So
side.
now we're going to go over the bridge.
Yeah,
So here's 2 Elliott.
yeah.
They really have 2 public way facades, if you will.
Elliott and Adams, yes.
So you're saying the language in here is only going to incorporate this, even though you've incorporated this byway as well?
Right. That's not a highway, that's Central Avenue, right?
No, that's Adams Street going over the bridge.
Here, can I just get your orientation? Okay, I see what you're doing.
So,
Yeah.
so 2 Elliott actually has a public facade
Yes.
on a public
Yes.
byway, only because they're a corner.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Judy. It's Elliott and Adams is the only
So
place.
I think to Julie's point, will this commission also determine what's done on Adams
Yeah,
by the bridge as well as Elliott across from the bank?
correct.
So it's a 2 facade building?
Yes.
That will be under,
Yes.
thank you.
I have a question.
I'm sorry it took me so long to
That's
get there.
okay, because it's confusing, isn't
Yeah.
it?
But, Judy's concern is, what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah,
One of the ways that we do things is we have the checks and balances.
yeah.
So right now, this proposed bylaws here at the Warrant Committee, we're going through it.
Right.
Who reviews when the when the committee comes up with their rules that they're going to put into place, who reviews those, if anyone?
Select board.
The select
Select
board.
board, and they'll have to come in front of you as well,
Okay.
just like I did.
Where do you find that it's got to come before the Warrant Committee? Because everywhere I have traveled, and I've put a lot of miles on this, I have never once heard they have to come through the process of Warrant Committee, because our only purpose is to prepare a warrant for
So
town meeting.
the question then is, what's the source for that?
My source was talking to Nick and Mike,
Okay.
manager and select board, that there is, and Steve O'Donnell and Meredith Hall. These are all chairmen of committees here in town.
Would those rules become part of the bylaw?
Yes. Yeah. And they will be chosen again by the select board, but they'll be chosen. Those 7 members will be chosen from 14 members. And then they get chosen 7. And we didn't have enough for alternatives. We never had enough for alternatives. So if we have, I would have loved that.
What do you mean you didn't have enough? You could have made 7
My
alternatives.
committee.
6 alternatives. So you had, well, actually, 5 alternatives, so you had one from each group.
No, we had 5 members, and we went
Oh, yeah.
to 7
No, I'm
members.
understanding what
And
you're
we
saying
went
now.
through 14 members.
But to Dave's point, and if you could really clarify this, because this is new news to me. And again, maybe I wasn't looking out the right window when I was putting all those miles on. But even in talking to some folks in some other towns, I never once heard that once these rules are made by these appointed people, that it had to go through the process of acceptance.
Yeah, of course it would.
Not necessarily.
That's not the way I understand it.
But
I haven't done the study that you seem to have done
well,
on the next
again, somehow, if everyone knew what road I wanted to travel here, and you'd think someone would have brought that up to me. Well, Judy, there's a checks and balances, and there it is right there. And here it is. Why is it just like at the 11th and a half hour, why wasn't this information put forth before?
This is my 3rd meeting here, and.
I know it's your 3rd meeting here.
But it
Okay,
comes
all
up.
right. You're not badger
I'm
the
done.
witness.
No, I wasn't trying
Right,
to.
and we have, yeah, we need to bring some other people into our dialogue. Jay's had his hand up for a while. Jay?
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, so I was looking at the updated bylaws that you presented, the updated text, and I noticed you added quite a few paragraphs to section 5, which I appreciated. The paragraphs that appears you added were a lot more specific about what they're looking for, what they're not looking for, when they should prove something, when they should say something's okay, when they should deny it. I very much appreciated that specificity. But I was shocked in that I looked over the rest of the bylaw, and you and I talked in October, and I talked to this whole committee in October, and there were quite a few fundamental problems with the bylaw, just with the wording of the bylaw itself. And I thought I provided my issues to you in writing. I know I provided them to the committee in writing, and all the issues I raised are still here. There are problems and contradictions with the number of members of the committee, who's on the committee, the alternates. I don't know of any other committee in town that has alternates, so I don't know how this would work. The alternates just raised a whole lot of questions for me. I suggested that be scratched because it seemed to just be causing problems. There's confusion about, how many members would be on it. There was confusion about how many votes are needed to approve something. There was the numbers and the numbers of days that an appeal takes. The numbers didn't add up. I did the math last October. I did not repeat the math now because I'm lazy, but they didn't add up and they don't seem to have changed. And the biggest issue that several of us on the committee had last time is that there's no maximum amount of fines. The fines can be up to $500 per day. So if someone is in violation for 100 days, that's $50,000. I know several of us on the committee in October had a real problem with this, and that's still there. So I'm confused and upset that all the issues that we found in October are still here. So I don't know if you can speak to that.
So Jay, in that first meeting, you sent me a long redlined letter. We went through that. We went through it the Warrant Commission the first time. I came back a second time. I don't think you were at that meeting. I then went ahead and met with Dave and another attorney from your committee. We worked through the language, and then we went back into our committee after talking to the state and other people, and everyone of that group was satisfied with the language. There is some general language in there, meant specifically. So you brought up, again, who's on this committee. There's 7 members on the committee. It's very specifically said who's in that committee. It's highly unlikely this town is ever going to find 7 people plus 4 alternatives. That this is volunteer work. So if we have 7 committee members who are dedicated, that'll be great for the 2 to 3 years, whatever they're going to be elected. Have I answered most of what you brought up?
No, not at all. Like the makeup of the committee, I'll just start with that. It says the committee will be 7 members. 2 of them start with the one.
Jay, can you give us what number, when you, as we go through?
Sure.
Two.
Can you give us like what's
Sure, 4.1.
4.1?
So let's read how many members it says are on the committee.
4.2.
There we go. 4.1? Thank you. 7, 2,
That's great if she can share.
4, 6.
So that was, one of the first issues I saw, and then when I opened up the document yesterday, I saw it's still there. It still says 7 members. 2 have a 1-year term, 2 have a 2-year term, and 2 have a 3-year term. That's not the end of the world, but it's an easy problem to fix, and it wasn't fixed. And then in 4.2, we talk about there being 2 property owners from each district. Well, there's only 1 district. So I don't understand that. And then in 4.3, the select board may appoint up to 4 alternate members in a like manner. A like manner, like what? I don't know what that means. And do the alternates have to be architects or attorneys or residents of the district or not? And do the alternates line up with the regular members? Like, do you have a regular architect and an alternate architect? And if the regular architect is gone, they're replaced by the regular alternate architect? Or is it just whoever the chair decides to call that night? So that was confusing to me. And also, as I said, I don't know of any other committee in town that has alternates. So I don't know why they're here. Next, 4.7. 4.7 says 4 members of the commission shall constitute a quorum. Well, how does that work with the alternates? If not everybody shows up, do you call the alternates, or do you say it's a quorum?
Of course you could use the alternates.
Should I keep going, or should I keep going, or should I pause there?
I think you're making this needlessly complicated.
Well, I mean,
I'm very good at that. The other people in the room will tell you that I excel at that.
so it's true. As we look at it, like at 4.1.
Could you go to 4.1?
You want this? I got it right here.
It doesn't add up 7. It looks like there's one that's unaccounted for,
I think I paged it in print, okay.
right?
Yeah, that one that's unaccounted for is at large. Just a minute, let me see this. Yeah, it's a shame we have that. Could we get rid
Here,
of
do you
that?
want to use
If
my
we get rid of
paper?
it- Oh, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, 2 members. Yeah, I don't know, I think it's going to be.
So that only gets you
So
to
we can
6
see.
versus.
Yeah, that's what was missing there.
I only came up with 6 too.
Because I
It
think
says
we
right
put
here.
it down here.
I came up with 6.
That is confusing.
Like manner, I know what that means. They're
It
appointed
just
by the
says
district.
they have to make public notice.
Why would they be
Here it
alternates?
is.
They don't have
have
to
no
go to the
idea.
warrant committee. Where is Dave's right?
Three. Let me see,
I'm
that,
gonna agree with Jay often, but I agree with him.
No, I agree with Jay
2, 3,
100% on
4,
this.
5,
I think I
6.
caught the alternate thing too.
7.
I don't know. Who's running the asylum here?
So the like manner, I saw that in context right now. The like manner means the exact same way that they were chosen for the actual board itself.
Which number is that?
4.3.
Thank you.
But that's interpretive, like manna could.
It's the same way you were appointed, the same way I was appointed. That's the like
So
manner.
I think,
The district committee
Okay,
makes the
okay.
determination.
I think I agree with that, okay? I think it's assumed, when they say as a like manner, it's assumed that it should be as a like manner by which they originally,
Appointment via that board.
as per, 4.1, 4.2.
Yeah, not one for one.
So old. Yeah.
One architect for one architect, one realtor for one.
I understand the alternates. I agree with Jay on that, the whole alternate
Yeah.
member situation. There are no other, the alternate members.
So it's-
There are no other committees in town that have it. I don't know why we would have it here for this one.
That was taken from state. State had suggested that, because in some of the towns, they have alternate members. So they would have, it would have been, an appointment, like for instance, say it's 2 architects or 2 realtors, and we couldn't get someone else. We can use another realtor, but they would be the alternate. Did that make sense?
What's
So you
the,
don't, so you have 5 people that you have found, and then you added an extra
Yeah.
realtor and an
Yeah.
extra architect.
Could. We didn't, but you could.
But you could as the,
Yes.
that's it, so the alternates are only there to choose from the types of people up here.
Yeah.
If you don't have 7.
And chosen from the select board. The committee does not choose those people.
Correct, because it's in a like manner.
Yeah.
So those 2 paragraphs seem to need to be like restated a little bit, like I just said.
My mileage was.
Because that's unclear. I think that is unclear. And I would go back to just, if you don't have enough. Like, I
Reschedule
just
the
don't
meeting.
understand the alternate thing.
Reschedule them, like us,
Well, I can
almost
see if
happened.
there's a conflict of interest, right? You have a very small population.
Yeah.
If 2 are property owners, they obviously can't vote on their own, right? So I can see where if you have developers, realtors, they can all be conflicted out and you need alternates. Whereas at large issues, we probably would less likely be conflicted out.
what's the downside to having alternates?
None, to me.
Well, I'm not saying, it's just, now, we don't have any today. Do we need, now we're creating something new, that's all. Can happen.
Tom?
Not to, Ron raises a good point,
Yeah, he does.
I mean, the conflict
Well, then,
issue.
well,
And I
then,
understand what Jay and what Lori are saying, like, it's really unique to any board or committee in town, but, I think somebody may not want somebody voting on, just how Ron laid it out, I think it's a good catch, but
so to that point, though, the 2 property owners that are in the district that own property can't vote on anything because they have a conflict of interest.
Potentially, if someone raises it.
Wouldn't you think by default?
Can we get Ron mic'd? It's really hard to hear Ron on Zoom. Thanks.
Sorry.
I want to go back to that section.
Lori, was that,
Does that make sense? Like, I would think any property owner voting on something in the historic district that they live in is a conflict of interest.
Potentially, I don't know.
just by its nature, they're voting on what is going to impact them personally,
Financially.
financially. Well, yeah, financially. Their personal property. They're going to either, depending, vote a certain way.
So the idea would be to remove the person from the district, right?
From the committee.
Well,
From the committee, I'm
is-
sorry,
Yeah,
the
two
committee.
property owners in
And
the
then-
district. If that's why we have alternates for what you're saying with the conflict, which I get.
Doesn't that inherently just cancel out a property owner? So why are they
Exactly,
there?
that's what,
Property owners.
and I agree,
Sticky.
but
Yeah.
if that's kind of the rationale on the alternate,
More worms in this can.
Jesus.
As a general statement, we collectively, individually, don't get to decide what constitutes a conflict of interest. The State Ethics Commission does. It sounds like this is, what we're working with here is, this is to some degree boilerplate that you guys have received from other towns that has been approved by the state body. So I would show some deference to that. Like, Jay's brought up some good points, though, about the numbers not adding up,
Yeah,
he did.
okay?
No
I
one,
think,
it's one number. It's that first
right,
paragraph.
so, like, right? Jay, are you still there? You had some other.
I'm still here.
You had some other concerns?
Yeah, I guess the other things I would say are in section 7, again, I did this in October. I added up the number of days, and there just wasn't really enough time for everything to get done. I'm too lazy to do the math again, but I had suggestions at the time. And then also 7.6, going back to like the number of people on the committee, 7.6 says you need a majority of members on the committee to issue a certificate. Well, a few paragraphs ago, we said that you only needed 4 members for a quorum. So if there are 4 members in a meeting, it has to be unanimous to issue a certificate. Maybe that's the intent, but it seems unintended. And then, of course, they use the word chairman every time they should use the word chair. And the final thing is sort of what caused the most discussion when we met last time, which was there's no maximum fine listed. $500 a day for an infinite number of days. And last time something like this came in front of town meeting, which was, I don't know, Tom and I were there, so it's been within the past 10 years. Town meeting rose up and said, no, there cannot be an unlimited fine based on the number of days. We need a cap on it. And, yeah, those, I believe those are my issues.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Okay, so the new ones here seem to be revolving around 7.6, concurring vote, a majority, and then this issue of the maximum fine.
11.3.
But we can't do anything about the maximum fine. The maximum fine information came from the state. So we needed to have something in there as part of this, but we're not determining what that fine, who collects that fine, how that fine is collected, or what the maximum is. Hopefully, we don't have to fine anyone, but we have to have that in there.
Can I say something?
Sure, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, one way to view the warrant committee is we're asking all the questions that town meeting is going to ask to work the answers out now. And I don't see town meeting saying, yeah, it's okay to have unlimited fines. I don't. So I don't know where that leaves us. But,
Okay.
yeah, sorry, that sentence didn't have a point. I'll put myself back on mute.
Amanda.
Hello. So I'm going to, reiterate what other people said. I think I love the idea of the Historic Commission. I think a couple of things I have questions about and concerns. In some of these, I guess my question is when we're talking about that language is coming from the state, But then earlier in the presentation that we're talking about the difference between a state historical, I'm going to get the wording wrong because I don't have it in front of me, but the difference between one that's done by the state and one that's done by the town. So if this is a town commission and these are town bylaws, then I guess I don't understand why we can't have more flexibility with the language around some of the things, that Jay brought up, for example, on the maximum fine. And I appreciate that some of us are more detail oriented than others, but we're asking to recommend language. And I think to Jay's point, where language comes up and we have questions, and it's come up in other places, that if we're not bringing it up now, at what point does it get brought up? Because we're being asked to recommend something. And I think if we have questions around the details about it, then others might as well. But I guess my bigger question is, it sounds like when we're talking that based on the committee members, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I guess I want some edification on this, but if we're talking about the committee members, so you have the committee this year that is 6 members plus alternates, but then the committee changes. And does that then mean that, I guess, at what point are the rules and the regs around specifics as to what can and can't be done within a historic district? So it seems like it's very much dependent on the makeup of the committee. So this committee might, there's language about color, but this committee might say, no, there's more flexibility around it. But then the next committee, it sounds like the rules can change depending upon the makeup of the committee. Even sort of that comment about it's the front facing, but then, it doesn't really matter about the back unless the committee has an opinion on it. So I guess I'm just not really clear at what point that gets answered, like sort of where does it ebb and flow depending on the makeup of the committee? Does that make sense?
It certainly makes sense to me, the chairman of this, the chairman of this group, not the next group, that, the committee, like many warrant committees before this, it's made up of the people who are in the town who have the desire to assist the town. So you want everyone to be inclusive. You're going to try and get the best language in there. To me, I see no difference between quorum and majority. If you have quorum, you are a majority. That's just the nature of the way it is. But I understand a lawyer wanting exact language to follow through in every exact place. I understand that. I'm not an attorney. And we're talking about, also again, we got stuck in the conversation about what fines are and what the fines are going to be. We put that in there as general, knowing that the next committee is going to be the specifics on that.
Ron?
I think one thing that could be helpful and maybe make us feel more comfortable is if the structure that you mentioned, where the feature commission, their guardrails are put into writing somewhere. And especially the part where that process where they draft their bylaws gets reviewed by the select board and whatever review process that is. I think you said that Nick and some other folks have told you that's how it goes, but it's not written down anywhere. And I would think if it's written down anywhere, it should be in this document. That at least you set these guardrails and say the future commission would also be bound by these, whatever it could be, review processes or some language so that they have this.
I absolutely understand your point. When I was appointed and then named the chair, I got zero guidance. Nothing was told. We're just kind of let go and do what you think is right. And I don't know how you change that with volunteers unless you create forms and everything, which we haven't.
My question would be, my statement would be to touch on that, and also to touch on what Jay said as well about the fines and the penalties. That's really, that's a big deal. I think, so we don't end up in what would be almost a popularity contest and the luck of the draw on who you get to go in front of, because you might be having a great day and you don't care what I do and you're not as strict, but the next person might end up in front of you and you might have a much different idea and opinion on what's okay. And if you're trying to price out a project, I think we need really a black and white. Yes, that's okay. No, that is not okay. Yes, that is okay. And it doesn't matter who you're in front of, what day of the week it is, who's in a good mood, if they like you or not. And that's what I'm afraid would happen, is if you had somebody who had any sort of, right? That's what I wouldn't want to see. But I think I like what you've got.
I'm going to answer that. Go ahead, Julie.
Oh, no, please answer Julie first.
When you were talking about that, we did a whole meeting on the sign committee.
Yeah.
You know, what signs can be there and who determines what the right size and all of that.
Yeah.
And there is physical dimensions and sizes and everything.
Okay.
But then it goes in front of the committee and, oh, well, this has been there for this so many, and I need it, otherwise I can't stay in business kind of stuff.
And that's how you see it, all of a sudden attorneys are involved. There's lawsuits because this guy got it, that guy didn't get it.
Yeah.
Right, that would be my fear, is
Yeah.
just costing the town.
Go ahead, Judy.
To Ron's point and Dave's point as well, this 5.3, it appears that they only have to have a public hearing duly posted at least 14 days, blah, 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 read it, as to the rules. So the fact that there are town government people verbally explaining, no, this has to go through the whole process, make an article, come to the warrant committee, we send it to town meeting, or the select board sends it to us, we send it to town meeting, the town meeting votes. That's a long process. The town meeting doesn't meet more than 3 times a year, really. So to change a rule seems cumbersome every time someone wants to change a rule or amend a rule. That rule that we made really not working well. So, as they say in the comment section of every newspaper in America, cite your source, provide the link. And I think Ron's correct in that, Nick is great. He's a great go-to if you need a source of information. I'm there frequently. But cite it. Show me, and Ron's right. And Dave brought up a good point. And I'm going to concur with both of those, that we need to see that in writing. We need to see that as proof. Oh, yeah, this is the process, which could be very lengthy. A bad rule is in place, they want to fix it. Boom.
But I'm looking at what Judy's talking about, 5.2.
3, I think.
Well, I'm
3, 2,
starting
and
at
3,
three.
yes.
The commission may adopt from time to time, and from time to time amend reasonable rules. So the commission can adopt rules and regulations not consistent with this bylaw, which we have, and the Massachusetts general law, setting forth.
That's correct.
I don't see subject to approval by the select board, the warrant committee, and publishing as a bylaw. And then it goes on 5.3, and it says then, after a public hearing duly posted, they could adopt, amend guidelines that would, for the determination by which they would issue a certificate of the certificate. Reading this, it seems to me that by adopting this bylaw, we're giving the commission the ability to promulgate these regulations and amend them, the only notice to the town being 14 days conspicuous notice.
Right.
So why is everyone saying that?
So then I don't see that this actually says subject to approval of the select board, the warrant committee, and adoption into the bylaws of the town. So if I'm wrong about that, I would like to be made so aware, because I think that's a bit of a difference.
So what you're looking for is the select board to, if this next group, we keep getting stuck in this next
Understood.
group that has nothing to do with me, but.
But Ron's point is,
To have it there.
yeah, it's like, we need, if we're, because that's like the question, part of the larger conversations that we have is what's the difference between a statute, a guideline, a regulation. You see what I mean? At what is binding? What is a suggestion?
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And then a reading of this, of the law, because this is the bylaw, this is going into the bylaw, is that it's conceivable that you could have a commission in town that could promulgate. The concern, or not, again, this is a lot of power. This is a lot of power. And we're concerned about the checks and balances. And my reading of this seems to be that once this commission is is set up, that they can make these rules. It looks like adopt them and amend them as they see fit.
Without the select board.
That the way this is written, right? And if there's like a common practice that's in play, then, right? A local rule of the town.
That's my.
And I want to get
question.
verification on that, because that could be simple. These amendments, the commission shall promulgate rules, guidelines, whatever, that shall become if approved by town meeting. Yeah, right, select that process. Because otherwise, the reading of this it's a fire and forget almost.
Right. I concur that clarification. Again, good sources, but that's kind of what we do here is the real purpose of this committee is to get into the weeds of what's written and what does it mean. We just make a comment at the end of our vote why we came to the conclusion of the vote. And things like this could be mentioned in the comment as to, we're trying to find the pathway. And so we perhaps seem to have a lot of questions, but basically that is the function of this committee.
Well, I think we do have questions here, and I think we have some things that we can correct. Let's keep in mind, we're a many page document. We have a couple of questions. So we're there. We're very close. We need to tighten up.
Right, it looks like a couple of these issues are just math.
Yeah.
Simple math, just making sure, okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Lawfer before we engage in our discussion? Yes, Judy?
Sorry. So, posed that way, would you feel comfortable that instead of rushing this through, you would be able to, what did you use, tighten up some of these areas and to come back to us again?
Yeah. See, I am already set up to meet with some of the other committees, and my understanding from Dave right now is I'm going to be talking to the select board. So my committee will have another meeting the first Monday of the month, somewhere in this building, and that's where we'll make the final corrections and then send them. The final.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.
Can I waddle home?
Yes, please. So let's have a discussion. We would like to have a discussion. Does anybody have any thoughts?
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
for your
thank you,
time
Mr. Lawfer.
and your help.
Thank you.
I don't know, I'll just throw this out there for discussion amongst the members. It seems that it seems from listening to the members that we want this document to be the best it can be in clarification. So with that in mind, would we want to send it back until all of this is a nice, clarified, neat, easy to understand, and we don't have as many questions, even though it might be delayed until the fall? I don't know. It's a thought?
So it's a good, so I think, like, what we did last time was when we said we'll refer it back. So what we did is true. Tom and I sat down with them. We did have Jay's red line. We sat down, we met, they went back, and here we are. And like I think Mr. Laufer said, like, we're getting closer. I don't think we got to go so far as a vote to send it back. Because if we do that now for the annual, we're talking about bringing it back at the fall special, whatever. I think we can do it now. I think we got good notes. I think a lot of the concerns. I mean, Jay's always very, very helpful with this stuff. Maybe we can bring Jay in. I think these are kind of things that we could even do over the phone. I'd want to talk to people at Town Hall about the mechanics of the bylaw, right? I think that if we need to put some language in there with regards to subject to ratification with town meeting, I mean, that's like, I think I just did. You know what I mean? Like, this is not just, right?
He seemed amenable to some of those changes too, but I think he's going through his committee, obviously.
Right, and so like, they're still in a process, so like, if we could, what I saw, I'm gonna sort of throw this out, because we wanna like not come up with 5 more things every time we get back, because the things that I saw from Jay was the numbers don't add up, 4.1 numbers don't add up, 4.2 it doesn't kind of add up. Like, there was an issue of if there's an at-large who's floating around out there. We talked about what is Lake Manor. There's some issue about the alternatives. I think at some point we're just gonna
Let it go.
have to make our peace with alternatives, potentially. Max fine, good point, right? But there are reasons not to have a maximum fine. Like, what if somebody's really messing up? I can't even think of how you could, but anyway. Ron's point about guardrails, making sure that's in there. Like, what is the overall scheme here? How does this fit into the overall scheme of our town government? It just seems, it's so much power over somebody's life, over their home.
Yeah.
I mean, it hits you, like when somebody comes up and says, you can't do that on your property.
But there's nothing specific. Everything is like so open to interpretation. And my thing is, you shouldn't have a different set of rules than I do. Like, that's not fair to anybody if you happen to the luck of the draw and who you pull, and who likes you and who doesn't.
And
That's
so-
what I found
Exactly.
dangerous, yeah.
So whoever comes up with these rules and guidelines and stuff like that, like, you don't know. You could get somebody who's like ideologically out in left field who now wants to promulgate some kind of guidelines, get the whole state do it, and just crazy.
It's unbridled.
It's tough in Hingham. I've dealt with a lot in Hingham with with the
bad.
Main Street, with the pink color. Like, and especially if you try to go to sell something down there, you'll have people like, what do you mean I can't do what? And what? And the windows thing is a big deal. I know he wasn't acting like it was a big
huge.
deal. Those windows, the price of those windows start to double and triple and quadruple, and then you need special contractors who can install them. If there's that's a big expensive thing. So yeah.
But that is, like Mr. Laufer says, that is down the road. Okay?
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're setting up the overall. So my sense of right now, that maybe what might be in order, like a motion to just table this, and then like, I work with people here on the warrant committee, not enough, you're right, we're not going to subcommittee, it's not going to be enough to like, right, we'll get together with them, we'll figure this out, and then I'll bring it back like as soon as we can.
Perfect.
Like, and we'll just,
And they can't skirt you? I'm sorry. They won't be able to, nobody was mentioned in that language that he had that you just pointed out. Nobody's gonna be able to skirt the warrant committee or.
what do you mean by?
So you had just pointed out the language where it didn't say anything about them having to go in front of the select board or having to go in front of anybody. And if we table,
all the table means is for purposes of, like, how are we handling this matter before our board?
But are we required to handle, are we required to handle it, I think is my question. Like, at what point?
Sooner or later.
Sooner or later,
Well, that's
yeah.
what I'm saying, is like, it's my prerogative of the chair to put things on the agenda. Let us, like, go do our thing, and I will bring it back, because if we haven't voted on it, we have to vote on, or we have to vote our recommendation to,
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
to town meeting on what to do, okay? Technically, the old draft of what we did before is still going to the annual, because that was tabled.
All right.
Okay? I think that there's time for us to get something here in at the annual, right? Because I think it's true, it's like, of course, like, we met with them, was it like an hour?
If that.
Like, we were able to meet with them like for like an hour the last time, and I think we tightened it up a lot. Obviously, there was work that we left undone, right?
So you guys already met with them and they came back again with sort of,
Yeah, but this is complicated
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, they haven't done it before, we haven't done it before.
I think it was, you know, the great things that Jay brought up, other members. I just think that in our conversations with them, they're bringing it back to the whole committee. You know, so they knew what was, you know, our concerns were. I think they made those adjustments and didn't do others.
okay.
And I think that's just a lack of understanding of just the process within the town. And I know that's what Larry just said, that, you know, they were unsure of how this works. But Mr. Chair, I know that the select board needs to approve this language, right? And then we vote. So I think it still has to go really back across the hall.
Yeah.
For like,
But it,
and then, you know, the order is, you know, they approve and then they send it to us for final comment.
and
They're
he's
gonna
going there
approve the-
tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's on their agenda for tomorrow. So,
What's he gonna bring?
right, and I just paused this, I throw it out there, I
So
don't,
I can talk to Nick, and give them a heads up.
but they're still at the
that
drawing
we're-
board.
That we're still, because what they are gonna have, so the select board has to approve the language that goes into the warrant, right? So like, let's say that we were just gonna approve this tonight, we could have approved subject to the select board, you know, tentatively subject to their approval, so they won't be able to do that. I think that there is enough time that if we're able to get with Mr. Lawfer and his people, make a couple, tighten this up a little bit, we can get that to the select board for their discussion. They may not, it's anyway, and then there we go. So I think we're close to close.
So the select board will say on their agenda meeting tomorrow that it's come to their attention that there might be some language change, so they're not going to address it.
I would imagine that would be something they would strongly consider doing.
Okay, perfect,
You
thank
never know,
you.
they could do it, you know, but
You can approve it as it is.
they could approve it as it is, you know, for reasons that they have. That's fine, you're right? It's checks and balances. So what I think we'll do is, if there was a motion to table, I would table it, and then I would bring it back as soon as I possibly could.
I'll make that motion on the table.
Second.
Tim Lyons made the motion to table, and Tom seconded it. I think we need to do, please,
Jay has his hand up.
Can I-
Jay.
Okay. Sorry, just to chime into the discussion. So, I mean, as everyone heard tonight, I have issues with the wording, and I think those issues with the wording can be fixed
Yes.
without too much difficulty. But I also, echoing what I heard some of my fellow members say, I also have issues with sort of how vague it is. I don't know if that's a deal breaker with me.
Okay.
Or if it's not, but I don't want to give anyone, our guest or anyone else, the impression that, yeah, if you take it away, fix the wording, bring it back, I will support it or the warrant committee will support it. Because I think once the wording is cleaned up, then I'm going to look at the content. And at this moment, I still have issues with, as other people said, you know, what really specifically is it going to be? So just throwing in my 2 cents.
Yes, Jay, thank you for that. Reads you loud and clear. Let's start with the wording. And I'm going to ask, I'm taking your comments here tonight as you volunteering to help us with that. Thank you for your service to our town.
I just like causing problems. I don't like
This is
fixing
your
them.
opportunity to salute now.
Like,
Hey, you're gonna solve
yeah,
problems.
no, like I've said before,
No, that's not my style.
Jay is often our early warning detection system. Okay, we can do this by a voice vote. Can we do this by, we can do this by a vote. The rules state we can do this by a voice vote. All in favor of table, say aye.
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 All against, say no.
But you can't hear the Zoom people.
The ayes have it.
I was about to say aye, but I thought all those people should be included.
The next agenda item that we have, I'll recognize Mr. Callahan and Mr. Jackson. Thank you for your patience this evening with us on the Warrant Committee. Our presentation is with regards to the...
Would you like to sit here?
That's the budget article.
Perfect.
What do the boards have?
I want to make sure everybody has it for the Community Preservation Fund.
Oh,
Has everybody got
good
it?
enough.
I'm good.
You good? Okay. Thank you. Take it away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm Tom Callahan. First time. I've been a town meeting member for 23 years. I've been in town 29 years and live on 16 Orono Street, but first time appearing in person in front of the Warrant Committee.
Welcome.
Yeah. It's exciting.
I'm Peter Jackson. Also, I'm the, for the committee, I'm the fiscal liaison between the money people in town hall and our committee. So that's help keep everybody on budget.
And I am the chair of the committee, succeeding Rob Levash, who got us off to a great start last year. As some of you probably remember this article last year. I just want to mention, before I forget, that we have a great committee. Jenny Russell, in addition to Pete and I, Jenny Russell is the vice chair, Joe Duffy, Linda Weld, Ted Carroll, Wendy Garpo, Cheryl Tagayas, and Kathleen O'Donnell round out the 9 of us. Three at large and 6 are representatives of different town bodies. I represent the Affordable Housing Trust, Cheryl, the Planning Board, Wendy, the Conservation Commission, Ted, the Parks and Rec, and Linda, the Historic Commission, and Joe, the Housing Authority. So that's the roundup. Similar to last year, let me give you just a brief refresher on last year. Some of you will remember this, but last year we funded 11 projects for a total of $1.66 million. This year we are recommending 14 projects for $1.16 million, so less money this year. The reason for that is we were working with a little bit less than 2 years worth of funding in year one, because it took us a while to get started up and the town was collecting the CPA surcharge. As you may remember, that passed from voters in November of 2022. It was a townwide referendum. 62% of voters, over 10,000 voters voted for it. And that's why we are collecting that surcharge. And each year the state matches what we raise locally. And I'll let Pete go into some of those details. So there's basically 2 sources of revenue. The locally raised revenue, which is a 1% surcharge with some exemptions. The first 100,000 of assessed value is exempt, both on commercial and residential properties. But it's essentially a 1% surcharge with those exemptions. So that's the locally raised revenue. And then the state has a trust fund that matches what towns raise, not dollar for dollar. That match will vary. It's been as low as, I think, almost 11%. In the early years of CPA, it was 100%. It's been in the 20 to 30% range. in recent years, and it depends on collections at the Registry of Deeds. That trust fund is funded essentially with $25 and $50 fees at the Registry of Deeds when you refinance or when you get buy a house. And that money, as you would imagine, fluctuates based on how many refinancings and how many mortgages are going on in the Commonwealth in a given year. So that's just a little high-level, sort of overview. And I guess we're here to talk about two articles, and I'm going to, and I know Amy Dexter, is on the town accountant's on the line too. So I'm going to turn it over to Pete. I think because in sequence, the first article is what I refer to as an organizing article. It's really looking ahead into the next year and doing what we legally are mandated to do from the state. So, Pete?
You've gotten copies of a draft budget article. Up until today, we didn't have monies to allocate to it yet because the town hadn't generated estimates of what we would take in our 1% surcharge. We have numbers now to put to it, and the town has estimated that we'd get $850,000 from the real estate tax surcharge. The state distribution this year, and they're all estimates at that time, we're using a figure of 17%. Last year we got a little over 21%, but as we all know, the real estate market's not that great, and the county accountant, the county treasurer, has told us that, it's unlikely that we'll be as high as 20% or something. So to be conservative, for our budget purposes, we use 17%. And then we also have some investment income because these funds that come into the CPA fund, they're invested, and whatever income there is from that investment, that comes back to the committee. So we're anticipating, and again, working with Amy and the others at Town Hall, we're estimating a total budget of $1,050,000 for the committee to use next year. The legislation allows us to set aside 5% for administrative expenses. The last 2 years that we've been functional, we haven't used that much. But as a committee, we decided to keep the 5% this year because we never know when we might have to hire a consultant or a lawyer or, some appraisal expenses or whatever. And any money that's not used out of that administrative expense goes back in to our accounts for the following year, so it's not money that goes away. So we're better off having a little extra in there in case something unexpected comes up. Then the legislation requires that we set aside 10% for each of the three purposes of the act: historic preservation, community housing, and open space and recreation. So the budget sets aside 10% of our total budget for each of those, and that leaves us an undesignated budget reserve of $682,500. So basically, we will be able to award grants for just under $1 million based on these estimates. It is possible that there will be a little money that comes in because we're only partway through the fiscal year and we don't know really what our tax income is going to be until they close out the books. And even when they close out the books next August, there still might be some lagging real estate taxes. But that's where we are for next year. So the first article is really just to establish the budget for the coming fiscal year. Are there any questions about that?
FY25.
FY25.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you
Just
can.
because I know the refi market is dead, and the interest rates being so high, they're not we're not turning around
Right.
loans like we were. What happens if we find that we overestimated? Just out of curiosity.
It usually doesn't happen. So I happen with another hat where I'm chair of the State Community Preservation Coalition, which is a nonprofit that oversees this law and has for the last 20 years. They work very, very closely with DOR, the Department of Revenue, to make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay.
Because they realize people like you and warrant committees all around the state are asking that type of question. People like Pete and I are like preparing to solicit applications for a certain amount of revenue. So overestimating is a bad thing in that context because we're getting ready to overcommit.
Yeah, yeah.
So we are usually pretty conservative, and usually they're pretty close also to being right on the point or a couple percentage points lower than what revenues actually come in. But we also, the other thing I would say is we have now 24 years of history.
Okay.
We've had some bad refinance markets in that 24 years, and we've seen what the numbers go down to. They never go to zero.
Yep.
They never go to, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's basically averaged 26, 28 million per year. Some years way in excess of that, but it never gets really below 20 million a year. So anyways, that's kind of the...
The other thing I would say, and I think Amy could confirm, she generated these numbers for us, and she was conservative in her estimations also, because the one thing we don't want to do is overcommit. Both the anticipated income from the excise tax, I believe she used 2%, and the Proposition 2.5 allows us to go up to 2.5 plus new growth. We didn't figure in any new growth because it's not great, but it's a little bit of that. The state distribution, it's going to be under 20%, but we really don't know. But going down to 17%, again, that's a very conservative number. And the same with the investment income. If all the money comes in the taxes, that investment income could be more like 70,000. But Amy was very conservative, so that we wanted,
Make sure
as you guys do, we have to leave ourselves some room. I don't know if Amy.
No, thank you for that. It would be a good idea. Amy, can you come on in, please?
Sure, I'm here.
Yeah, so can you please give us a confirmation, because we're really, this is our first budget article in this budget season going into the annual, so we're looking at the numbers now, and we're anticipating a vote on this warrant article. So you have looked at these numbers, and these are numbers that you're working with. Like, I'm looking at the proposed budget here as a total budget that comes out at $1,050,000. These are the numbers that you've looked at?
Yes, and as Pete mentioned, Lisa Cool, who's a member of my staff, and I worked extensively on it last week. We believe the numbers are conservative. We looked at the prior year commitments, which is basically what was billed for CPA tax, and we increased that slightly and then only took about 96% of it because there potentially isn't all collected in a year. And as Pete mentioned also, for the state match, we went in with 17%, which is lower than what 24 match was, closer to 20%. And then finally, the interest income is probably budgeted at half of what we think it will be in 24, because we don't know what's going to happen with interest rates going in to next fiscal year. And then to answer the question that one of the members raised about what happens if the estimates do come under, more than likely, it appears right now for 24 that we're going to come in above what we estimated, and that will just automatically fall to undesignated fund balance.
which is kind of there as a reserve in case that happens in the future. If that's not enough, we would raise it the following year. We would have to take it out of the anticipated revenue for the following year.
Is there
Did I
currently,
answer?
I'm sorry, is there currently a balance right now of an overage from a previous year? Or are we at zero?
At March 7th, as of March 7th, it's about 48,000, and we still have 4 months of collections on the taxes. So I anticipate it will be more than that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Answered my question.
So this is Amy Dexter. She's the fountainhead of all budgetary knowledge. We're lucky to have her.
Yes, she
Judy.
is.
Can I ask a question that may just not
Please.
go to a money question? Can you just explain to me, and it doesn't really belong, what the CPD does in the housing department of your,
Sure.
do you mind?
The community housing is essentially affordable housing.
Okay.
So it's housing that's affordable to people making below 100% of area median income. The towns then have the flexibility to spend that on a variety of uses, building new housing. It could be assistance to renters, assistance to home buyers, but the recipients have to be, and the beneficiaries of that have to be people that make less than
Follow that guy.
the area median income for the.
A follow-up.
Sure.
In our town,
Mhm.
how do you find that we disperse those funds currently?
So we've only had 1 year of funding, and we gave the Affordable Housing Trust. So we have decided so far as a committee that our best way, because we're not a committee of 9 housing experts, our best way to distribute the housing funds is through the Affordable Housing Trust. We have a well-established Affordable Housing Trust in Milton. For many years, they hadn't had, I also serve, I am the representative of that, so I can speak. For many years, we existed but had no money because we had, most housing trusts are funded largely through CPA revenue around the state. And we didn't have CPA up until a couple of years ago. So now we do have CPA, and we made approximately a $500,000 award to the Housing Trust last year for the purposes of potential development of affordable housing on town farm. That is one potential vehicle. That obviously hasn't happened yet, but 2 RFPs have been, or an RFP has been put out there, and 2 responses have been received. And indeed, those developers, one asked for $500,000 and one asked for $1 million from the Affordable Housing Trust. So the trust is in an enviable position now of having resources to potentially fund a development, whether it's there or other places in town. This year, and we'll get into this. Yeah, okay, yeah. We'll come back to that this year. This year, we did something, I think, hopefully that will be good for an existing affordable housing development in town. So I'll get to that, because I don't want to mix last year and this year.
I think I must have missed that last year, like,
Yep.
we were on parks.
Yeah, you know what, I was gonna ask you a question about the Governor Stoughton estate.
Yep.
And I was gonna, I guess, while I have you here now, wait, and I know there was an allocation of monies last year for the projects you're discussing from the community. Is there one this year? As to the Governor Stoughton?
No. So there is a recommendation. We're going to talk about that in detail when we talk about the second article, which is about this year. There is a recommendation of $400,000 to the Affordable Housing Trust for a different project.
Okay, I can defer to.
Why don't we just roll, you want to roll to your presentation with regards to...
Sure.
Right? Because then we can get to the questions with regards to that, which might answer other questions that we have with regards to the budget article, I don't sense that there's a lot more questions with regards to the budget article.
Yeah.
Just
No,
for
that-
clarification, we've been talking about this first article as the budget article, because that's established in our Bible, and we've discussed, the second one we talk as the funding article, and those are the actual projects we're proposing to fund.
I sent it to David.
I have that, I can do that.
Did you receive the
You know, I did.
Is it?
this?
No, Karen, I think I sent it to you from here.
So I can send it to you. What's the best email?
Printer.
WC clerk?
Housing trust, yes, yours looks different than mine. Oh, I don't.
Just while he's doing that, just to update you on last year's projects, like Tom indicated, we gave out $1.663 million in projects our first year. Of that, about $745,000 has been spent. So the rest is sitting, waiting for the projects to move further along. But meantime, it's earning us interest, which we always like.
Almost there, sorry.
That's all right. All right, so we'll go into the next slide. This is the language of the second article to see if the town will approve projects grant funding as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for fiscal year '24. And it's basically 14 projects for $1.167 million. Next slide. Here's the list of our recommendations for this year. For the Maytown meetings, or the Maytown meeting. So we got 2 affordable housing, or community housing proposals this year. One from the Affordable Housing Trust and one from Winter Valley, MRE. And what we did at the eligibility stage, because we have 2 stages of applications. One, we receive initial eligibility application, and we kind of, is it eligible for CPA funding? And go through an initial screening, essentially, and at that stage, we encourage the Affordable Housing Trust and the folks from MRE to talk to each other and to work together for one proposal. And they did, and they came in for a proposal to fund a small portion of the 36-unit addition at Winter Valley. And I don't know if everybody's heard about that, but Winter Valley is planning to add 36 apartments to low-income seniors. It's a great project. Everybody on the committee, housing people and non-housing people, were really excited about this project. So
65 plus? Is that what it is?
yeah, it's I think it's 65 plus. I'm not.
It's income driven.
I'm not an expert in the HUD. It would be the HUD definition of seniors. So it could be a little lower than that. It might be 60 or whatever. But yeah. 62.
See if we can get it down to 53.
I'm 64, so I guess I qualify. So anyways, that is the recommendation for this year to fund the 36-unit addition. It will also go on our SHI. There's a lot of talk in town over the last many years about how we're under the 10% goal that the state has set for all communities for the subsidized housing inventory, which is SHI. So these 36 units will go directly towards counting towards that 10%. So it will help us make some gains as well. The next category is historic preservation, and we funded 4 projects in that category. The Milton Cemetery We actually did a site walk of the cemetery. Lisa Hearn was great, and we're funding a project there to restore some of the historic headstones and deal with some of the trees and the roots that are causing damage to those historic headstones. That is an exciting project for all of us. They're all exciting. The Forbes House Museum came back to us for year 2 of the preservation of their carriage house and barn. We funded a project. We funded the first phase of that project last year, and we have agreed to fund the second phase. It'll probably be the last phase because we can only, for historic preservation, deal with exterior, and they have to then do the work on the interior. So they will have to seek other funding for the remaining of that project, but that's going to be a great community resource, we feel, for the town. Milton Art Center window study is a small study, but I think an important step for them in a historic building in East Milton. And then the Blue Hills Observatory fence, which is they've done some great work on the observatory and the fence is the wrought iron fence is deteriorated and really needs some stabilizing to preserve it, and also to have it act as a true fence in terms of being a barrier to intruders or what have you. So we have set aside money for that project. Then the bulk of the applications we got were in the open space and recreation category. This is a very popular category last year and this year. We are funding improvements to the Andrews Park baseball field. We are funding a water station. This was a citizen-led initiative. Andy,
What's his name?
East Milton Neighborhood Association guy.
Andy D'Amato.
Andy D'Amato. Yeah, thank you. Came to us with that project. So it's a water station, water bottle filling. The idea is also to be environmentally sensitive and reduce our need on disposable water bottles being used at the park. So that's we're funding all of that project, actually. Select Board came to us, and the town administrator came to us with improvements to the basketball court near the Council on Aging and the new fire station. That's exciting. There's been a lot of talk about not having a lot of basketball courts in town, and we've lost some over the last couple decades, as people know, at Kelly Field particularly, going way back. This is, and that is definitely a facility that needs improvement because it's in rough shape right now. Next slide. Another citizen-led initiative, Jeff Stone, came to us with this idea, the feasibility study of for a development of a Pine Tree Brook Walk, linking essentially the area from, in its full scope would be from the area near Steel and Rye, where the Neponset River walk is in the Central Ave area, all the way out to Yulin Rink, and following Pine Tree Brook where we can. So this is really a study to say, where do we have ownership? Where do we have right of way? Where could it be possible? There's already an established walk in the area between Thatcher and the Parkway, and then on the other side of the Parkway through Pope's Pond, but there's not other areas necessarily where you can get that close to the brook. So Jeff has based it on some really exciting trails that they have in Wellesley, and it would be kind of neat if we could see some of that come to fruition here in Milton.
That is interesting. Do we think the town currently has rights of way along?
Not continuous.
Not the entire length. It's a 3-mile length.
Yeah, right.
So
So
that's what
some
the study will
places, it
tell
might
us.
have to go on sidewalks around to
Yep.
reconnect again. Or there might be places where we can get a right-of-way, but this is just a study to see
Right.
where the holes are.
Right. And what the
might
challenges
address
would
them.
be, to doing something like this. Wow. It's exciting. Jeff's had this idea, Jeff talked about this in town meeting 15, 20 years ago. And again, now that we have CPA and we have some
Right.
resources, it's an idea that he could actually get started on potentially. All right, Kelly Field dugouts, improvements to the Kelly Field dugouts, both on the softball and baseball fields. Conservation Commission came to us with a Neponset estuary study. This is the area off of Copeland Circle, Cortland Circle, rather. I always call it Copeland, sorry. Cortland
From
Circle.
Granite Avenue toward Quincy.
Yeah,
Okay.
the marsh area.
On the
from
Heritage
that
Hall
neighbor-
side of the street?
What's that?
On the Heritage Hall side?
No, the other side, behind the homes going to the river, basically, towards Quincy.
Marshes over there.
The marshes.
California Ave on the highway to the
In
right.
front
To
of-
go on,
in
go
front of
to
Aaron's
the
house.
highway on the right.
Barry's sister's house.
Oh,
Will
got it,
that
got it.
connect out towards?
So this is just a study to kind of, I mean, we don't even know. We actually did a site walk with the Concon, and Arthur Doyle was great about walking us out there, and John Kiernan. It's the first time, again, I've been a town resident almost 30 years. The first time I've been out there. It's beautiful, first of all. It also plays a very important role protecting those homes right now, that marsh area. They do get flooded, as we know, but so some of it is looking at public access, and there's a old rail trail, the Granite Rail, speaking to the previous speaker. So there's a potential recreational use down the road, but this is just a preliminary study to look at that, but also look at how to protect, how to have the marshland be help protect the town more. And just Quincy and Arthur was very articulate about how Quincy and Boston have put a lot of money into the Neponset Marsh in terms of studying it and improving it. And Milton really has been behind those two communities. And the Conservation Committee made a compelling argument that we need to step it up a little bit and do our share to preserve that a very important resource for our town.
Just a quick question. Is there going to be any study to like the PCBs that are potentially in the ground?
That's not part of
I
this.
think that's beyond the scope of this
The
study.
EPA is doing
Right.
down to Baker Dam, and the select board has asked the EPA to extend their study area down through by,
Yeah, all the way down.
the wharf.
Yep.
But out further, no.
Because it all travels in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the sediments primarily, but, the further it gets from the sources, it just gets less and less, and, whether there's but this study doesn't look at that at all.
Okay.
It's way beyond our financial capability.
Right.
One of the things this allows us to do is the Neponset River Watershed Association, working with Quincy and Boston, they're, looking at climate change and how that will affect the marsh and sea level rise and all that. And this will give us data and a seat at the table on how they're looking at protecting the marsh into the future. And, what's going to happen nearby with sea level rise, because we have homes along Riverside Drive, Riverside Road that flood quite often now. And with sea level rise, what's the future going to be?
So just to finish up, we have the last three are a cluster around Hope's Pond, essentially. We funded last year, as you may remember, a bridge, a second bridge on Pope's Pond to be able to circumnavigate the pond. These are the first two well, the first one is related to the bridge, and it's a small amount of funding to have a trail extension to go down to the bridge, basically. There's got to be a little bit of path to the bridge in order for the bridge to be accessible. So that's completing that work. And then an accessibility study for, similar to what's happened at Turner's, is we have an accessible path around Turner's. If you've walked Pope's Pond, that is not accessible by any stretch of the imagination. Could it be? This is a study to sort of analyze what it would cost to make Pope's Pond more accessible, or parts of Pope's Pond more accessible. And then finally, the 14th project is Peverly Park Playground, which would be in the area near Pope's Pond on Sumner Street that would be a playground. We funded the initial feasibility study last year, and this is a portion of what some of the costs would be to build that playground. They're going to have to do some more private fundraising in order to complete that, but this hopefully will give them a good start. So $1.167 million. We've prided ourselves in the first 2 years of trying to be roughly equal. It never comes out, but $400,000 for community housing, $301,000 for historic preservation, and $466 for open space and recreation. So that is what we're bringing to town meeting.
Judy?
Yes.
When you brought up the bridge at Pope's Pond, I have
Yeah.
been following the Pope's loop for a while. And coming up in that conversation was when it comes down to the summer end, but a house that actually fronts Canton Avenue backs up to that loop at the end that people were used apparently to just traversing to get to the other side of the pond. Is there anything in your study that will reclaim the narrow strip of land that actually belongs to?
The private owners?
No, they own
The bridge is
down to here, and there's a small little, it's not a whole lot, of conservation land that belongs to the pond. But the access to that really like fenced-in area by the private homeowner sort of prevents the traverse through on what really is. Is that going to be part of your study or your?
Well, we're not studying this anymore.
But I mean,
we're
the
doing
bridge,
it. The bridge is funded, and I think you'll see.
We're not going to worry about that, though.
Well, so they brought our understanding, and Pete, correct me if I'm
Well, they've got a location for the bridge now, and they're working with the students at Northeastern in the engineering department to actually get the designs and get it built. That, it would be an enforcement issue for the Concom.
Yeah, it's
to identify and enforce.
But I wasn't sure if that was part of your,
Where the bridge, where the bridge crossing, it's not all the way down to Canton Avenue, because there is a private parcel in between, and the guys put up fences and signs.
correct, that's, I think, we're
right,
talking
that's
about
where
the
you're-
The bridge is
same.
going to be
But the
closer to the pond
Yeah.
than that private parcel, I think, to avoid some of those issues.
Right, okay, thank you. And may I ask one more question on another project? The Peverly Park, when I joined the
Another
Warrant.
citizen-led initiative, that should.
Right, no,
Yep.
and I was leading into that is, when I first joined the Warrant Committee, our chair advised us to get out and experience the town through committees. And so I had gone to the very first meeting, the CPC, on the night the Peverly Park moms got together to do this. And it was I was there for 2 hours, it was a great learning experience. But I come back to the placement of Peverly Park playground, because now as we know, there's the carve-out to the conservation land for the Parks and Recs to make the swap, so it'll eventually end up on Parks and Recs,
We
which
don't
is a
believe it's
proper
true.
use of park, but conservation land is not. So, to make that even more confusing, where are we at with that? How are you gonna do it? Knowing that we haven't actually
Well,
got the stamp on the
there is
Concom
a
and the
dispute
swap.
in town whether the land is under the control of the Conservation Commission or the Select Board. And it's been managed as, it was purchased on the recommendation of Conservation, and it was intended to be preserved as open space, and it's been managed and identified as conservation land for 60 years.
Since 63,
From 63
except
to...
it didn't get stamped.
Right, so that's
That's
way
another issue.
beyond us, but that may or may not be a legal question. But if the Select Board wanted to give some of that land to the Park Department, that would be an Article 97 taking of land.
Correct.
So that's not our issue, that's somewhere else. But
So, and
to all intents and purposes, it's not park land, it's conservation land.
so to get to like putting up little slides and swings, how are, and I hate to get in the weeds of that whole, but how are you gonna erect swings and slides and little sandboxes?
What we have done is we've encouraged the parties, Conservation Commission and the Beverly Playground planners, to talk to each other, and they are. And that's the best we can do.
But you're allocating the money in the event that there's concurrence on how to move forward.
We believe.
The Concom could allow the Park Department to build on their land, to build a facility like that on Concom land.
Not giving up control.
They're not
but-
giving up control of the land, but like the Park Department mows that now, the Concom doesn't. And so the Conservation Commission could allow the Park Department under a memo of agreement or whatever to erect and maintain a playground on that.
Conservation Commission is well aware of this project. We've raised it in our meetings,
Yeah,
and
they've
we know they're
expressed
aware, and they've expressed support for this project.
Oh, I thought it was a great idea that night I went.
And so we have not seen anything that raised a stop sign for us to provide the recommended.
Right, I was just wondering how that shook out in the
that's-
analysis,
that's
because
not-
I know the 97 hasn't actually
That's
occurred.
not our role. Our role is to
Okay,
review and
perfect.
fund these things if there's other issues.
But you feel comfortable going forward with this allocation, even if things aren't completely settled?
Yes.
That you feel
They've
comfortable?
still got a couple of years of fundraising and things to do, and they will, the Park Department, the Concom, the Select Board will have to decide that.
Yeah.
I just have a quick question on the Winter Valley development. So there's 36 units, and you said there was just a small portion of it that you were funding, right?
Well, it's like a $20 million project.
Yeah, which I know is a huge portion statistically, but.
So, yeah.
My question is, have they secured the financing for the remainder of the project? Is everything in
Yeah,
place?
they're,
Stamped, ready to go.
my colleague Julie Kramer on the Affordable Housing Trust knows more of the details, but I believe they have gotten the HUD award or designation, yeah. So the project is going forward.
Great. Thank you.
Are there any other questions on, we're kind of discussing both articles at this point, the budget article and the, should I call it, the granting article, if you will. Are there any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to open our table to discussion of both of the articles. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to bring to the table?
Could somebody, where exactly is the estuary study for the deposit? Where, I know you said somewhere. I can't picture it.
Granite Ave.
Yeah?
You take that right in the neighborhood, you go down like what Barry's sister has a house. It's all that marsh in front of that
Oh,
whole
in
street.
California Ave is on the other side.
No.
So you're looking at the expressway. You're looking at the expressway.
Okay.
Right? It's
Yep.
right there, big hole. You see the bridge.
Yes,
To the right,
where the Conklins are.
there's a
Kinda, yeah.
there's a marsh. If
Okay.
you look through the Clover, the on-ramp to the expressway, there's the marsh.
Oh,
Even
got it.
see it
Sorry,
out
I was
there?
too far south. I couldn't figure
You're
it.
too close to the golf course.
Yeah,
Yep.
got it. Got it. Where the Garden Trust used to own the land before the conservation. Is that what it was?
Yeah, and we had an article last go around about giving that to the Conservation Commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
It's important because that's, the marsh stops the flooding,
Yeah, I keep forgetting.
better than anything.
I'm always thinking that's Dorchester.
You want to make a motion?
I do.
What motion would you like to make?
I'd like to adjourn. Oh, did you not want to adjourn?
Ask the question.
We're close. I feel we're close. Maybe like the third motion we would like to hear. Is there, before we get to that one, is somebody like to make a motion?
Prove it.
Approve it.
Okay, let's start, how about with budget?
I'll
Is there
make
a
a
motion with regards to the budget? The article, we don't know what the article number is just yet.
Has this come from, been through the select board already? This article? The unnamed article, because they're not numbered yet. We understand that.
Good enough.
Has the select board seen this?
So that's a good point. You know, I don't know. So what we could do is we could make a motion to tentatively approve this subject to, because that's one of the reasons why it was important to have Amy Dexter here, get the confirmation from her, because she's got the budget. There, we have all this.
I think you said as presented in the past.
As presented?
Does that sound right?
Yes.
Sounds
Yes,
right,
it does.
fine.
Yeah.
Just go with this as presented.
That way, if it changes, you need to read it.
Cover yourself.
Right.
See, my motion was the one to make. My motion was the one to make.
I'm back in yours. I don't know, next time I'm just gonna get up.
So I could make a motion.
Okay. Judy's making a motion.
The two unnumbered articles from CPC involving transfer of funds and allocation of funds. Should I do them separately?
I think we could do,
Together?
and then we'll do them together, and then we'll do a roll call vote.
And the vote will be voted upon as presented, and if there are any changes, we may have to revote.
Sure.
Sure.
That the town vote to recommend.
The town vote to recommend
Yes.
The articles as presented.
the articles as
Thank you for
presented.
your assistance.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Tim was first. So,
That was the second time tonight you jumped me.
It's a game.
Feeling wacky one.
so Madam Clerk, could you please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
Tom?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Jay?
Jay is a yes. Jay is a yes. Am I off mute?
We'll come back to Jay. Allison? Allison? Julie?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Yes. Tim?
Yes.
Julia?
Yes, and Jay was a yes. I could hear him, but it sounded like you all could not.
Okay, so I'll put Jay down as a yes. Did we hear Allison?
No.
Okay. We did not hear Allison. JJ?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
We'll try Allison one more time. Allison?
Yes.
Oh, there we are. Dave?
I'll abstain, thank you.
Okay. The motion carries.
Thank you, motion carries. Okay, good job, everybody, thank you. So that's first budgetary vote. Judy?
May I before? And I'll be very brief. On Wednesday, I read the agenda. Do you expect there to be any voting?
No.
Thank you.
I don't think that the agenda for,
It didn't provide, I did, but I
Wednesday.
didn't know if you anticipated
so the
that.
anticipation for Wednesday
Is presentations only.
is okay, Nick is going to come present the budget.
Yeah.
We're not going to vote. Yeah, wait,
you.
right, and then schools comes with school budget. That's traditionally how we go, because schools is such a big part of the budget.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we would not vote budget yet, because we still also haven't heard from everybody else, okay?
Thank
So,
you very
but that's
much.
gonna be a very big, important meeting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is there another motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Lori motions to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second, this time.
Seconds this time.
I did for you.
I second it, Dave.
Oh. Second fight.
Oh, God.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against?
What about the Zoom people? We keep forgetting them. Can they speak as a group?
I'm in favor.
Is anyone against? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you. See you Wednesday.